Today I'm going to be building a Hello World program in NeatTools. This is by no means the simplest program you can make in NeatTools, but I think it highlights some good concepts. And this is just my take on a Hello World program. I created it this morning out of thin air, and I'm sure if somebody else sat down to create a Hello World program, they would come up with something completely different. So, without any more talk, let's get started. The first thing I want to do is I need some letters. So I need a capital H and a capital W, and I need an E, L, and a D. And I also need a space. Okay. Now I've shown you these keyboard modules before. If I hook this lowercase d up to this LED and then I hit D on the keyboard, you can see the LED lights up, and so they work as input devices, but they also work as output. If I hooked a button up to the front of this D, and when I hit this button, it's actually firing a D out into the world. Now there's nothing picking that up at the moment, so you can't tell that it's doing that, but take my word for it. Okay, what else? I need a timer. I'm going to start at 100 milliseconds, and I need a clock divider, an LED, which I'm just going to change the color of this in a second. Okay, so green is on and red is off. So next thing I want to do, I need change the number of outputs on the clock divider to 12. And I'm just going to stretch it out so I can get to them a little easier. So I want to start with a space, and then I want H, E, L, L, O, space, W, O, R, L, D. Okay, so I can just shrink this back down so you can see it goes through and spits out the words Hello World. If I put my timer up to this, you can't see anything, but if I open up WordPad here, you can see it's just spitting out Hello World over and over again. So I want it to not only play this, but I want it to play it once, and then I want it to stop. So the way I accomplished this was I create a controller for the timer object. I can turn the timer object on and off right here, and what I want it to do is when it gets back to the top, I want that to send a signal to turn the timer off. So what I did was, let me disconnect the timer for a second, is I connected a second output to the first output. So the first output has two connections coming out of it. One goes to this LED and one goes to the H, or sorry, one goes to the space. And now what I want it to do, now like if I turn this back on, you can see when it gets to the top, when this when the clock divider gets back up to the top, the LED fires. So you can just visually see how this is cycling through. What I want this to do is when this comes on, I want it to send a signal to turn this off. So what I did was use the not object and oops, let me stop that. I need to turn the bit depth down to 1 so that it's sending either a 0 or a 1. And so when this is sending a 1, I want this to send a 0 to the timer. So now you can see it's stayed in the top setting because this is now turned off the timer. I don't know if you can see the little light in the corner of the timer is turned off. And so I want to be able to trigger this, and the way I did this was with an OR object. So now I want this timer or this button to trigger the clock divider. So now you can see I press the button, it will cycle through. When I press this button, it moves on to the second connection, which turns off this LED, which then sends a positive signal to turn on the timer. So when I press this button, it moves on to the next one, and then the timer picks up and moves them through the rest of the cycle, and then back up to the top, which then turns the timer off again. So I press that, it cycles through, and then it turns it off. So at the moment, you can't see this, because in order to press this button, I need to be in NeatTools. I can't be in WordPad. So as a sort of secondary thing, what I set up was a condition using the mouse position, mouse X position. You can see I hook up this 1D viewer to the mouse X position, and you can see this graph. And then what I want to do is send this to trigger the button here, and I have to send it through a pulse object because it's not, I don't want it to send the signal, I just want it to send one momentary on signal. And I mentioned in an earlier video that the threshold was this center line here in the graph that would trigger things on and off. In actual fact, I was wrong about that. The threshold is wherever I connect my output to the right side of this viewer. If I put it in the middle, then the middle will act as the trigger. If I put it near the bottom, then the bottom will act as the trigger. It creates an imaginary line wherever I connect this to. So in this case I want to connect one right up to the top, so that it'll only be triggered when I'm right on the very right edge of my screen, you know. So I want to create my threshold in that corner so that when I go right near the edge, you can see the LED turned off, which means it was cycling through, and then it outputs the words hello world. So now if I click over to my WordPad and then I move my mouse way over to the far right side of the screen, it types in the word hello world. And then I come back and go back again, and it does it again. Now if I change my delay in my timer to something a little faster, like 10 milliseconds, then I go and do it again, you can see it very quickly types in the words for me. The nice thing about NeatTools is that it allows sort of any input to be connected to any output. So you could see I was controlling this hello world function using this button or my mouse. If I had sensors connected to NeatTools through the Thing device, you know, sensors I had out in the real world I could use to trigger my hello world function. So, you know, a switch on my chair when I sit down could trigger the hello world, or a pressure sensor, or a photovoltaic meter. I mean, anything really. and then that could trigger my hello world. In fact, I could create a whole another program that did something completely different, that the output of that program could then trigger this program. And it really allows for unlimited combinations of inputs and outputs, which I find really, really sort of very useful. Okay, well, I'm just going to leave it for there, and I hope you enjoyed that. And there you go.